This case, I was pretty young when all this was going on. I'm 40, but...
Okay, we're ready to begin.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
I've read a lot about this, and I have a lot of questions. I'm from the South, so we heard a whole different view of what this story was all about than what was going on, I'm sure, up here in the North. I watched the movie, and I've told Denzel and told Spike this. I was told, I guess as a white Southerner, that Malcolm X was preaching hate.
Right.
I was in elementary school, okay?
Right.
I accepted it for what was said. I see the movie, and I read the book, and I don't even hear it. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but I didn't even hear any of the hate at all.
No.
I mean, I hear telling people to wake up,
Right.
and putting people down, you know, the whites in this case, for things that had happened to black people, which is understandable, but I didn't hear, I heard frustration, but I didn't really hear hate. Am I missing something?
No. You're on target. You're on track. You're totally on target, totally on track. His message to a lot of people who had lost hope was nationalistic. And he didn't want them to stay there, but to be jarred into the realization that they had a past before slavery, that they had a responsibility now, and that no one was going to give them anything, even freedom. They had to fight for it, and they had to struggle for it.
Well, when you read articles, I don't know if you read Carl Rowan, but I mean, he didn't like Malcolm X when all this was going on, but he hasn't mellowed a lot in his old age
Now,
here.
let me just say this. You see, that was a whole group of black people, and I think I've said this before, that white people had an agenda during that time. Mm-hmm. And it was a white agenda, okay? You know, for themselves, for their families, keeping this, barring that, meaning us, and that sort of thing. So that it was expected that white people have an agenda for themselves. However, black people were supposed to have a white agenda. And a lot of white people who saw black people having their own agenda as rejection, as they must be teaching hate, so that when Malcolm talked about solidarity and security and liberation and freedom and justice and that whole 9 yards, that was just totally out of line.
Well, Mr. Rowan says here, he says, Malcolm X never worked to get blacks, you know, in a desegregated school. He never went to jail for trying to win blacks the right to vote. And so that's...
But it's the same thing I'm saying. So that if you were not in integration, teaching integration, and, you know, patting white people on the head and telling them how good they were, if you said really how you felt, then that was okay and that was acceptable. And white people supported that kind of leadership. So that Malcolm, on the other hand, talking and telling people you got to stand up. You know, you cannot blame white folks forever, but we must blame white folks for the present condition. But you've got to break out of it. Now, there were a lot of white people that supported Malcolm. There are a lot of white people who want an end to this and a beginning to another kind of living in life. Now, a lot of black folks still, and even in 1992, don't see black people with a black agenda. They see black people with a white agenda, and this is not going to work.
So if you boil it down into, as Ross Perot says, sound bites, Malcolm X was trying to say the black people must get together as black people and get our problems straightened out before we can mix and figure things out with the rest of the population.
And that, my dear, in as you say, a soundbite, is the whole thrust of the nationalistic mode. Now, once saturated totally and completely in that belief system, and you're spewing it out as if it is your own behavior, your own thoughts, then you can adequately move to what Malcolm called the secondary level of nationalism, which means then working with individuals regardless to their ethnicity, crossing political, religious, and ethnic lines. Okay? But I think I would like to work with people who had some sort of yardstick of how to measure me and how to measure interest to me and dedication to me. And I would do that by whether or not the individual cared about themselves, whether or not the individual cared about their own people. If you don't care anything about you, I don't want you to care about me.
So today, 1992, are we any better off? I mean, as a population, as a whole, you feel better about things? I mean, has there been improvement for the races?
Well, at least we can talk about it.
Yeah, we're not killing each other as much.
We can talk about it.
Okay. There are thousands, maybe millions of young people today wearing X caps, shirts, and that kind of thing, and they're going to see the movie. What do you want them to get out of this?
That they have to be responsible for their own lives, that interstitially they need to be strengthened, and that if they need to walk spiritually holding Malcolm's hand, they can do that, that he's there for them. If they want to wear some memorabilia of Malcolm and feel strengthened through the vibrations of that they can do that. But strengthen they must, and they must accept the responsibility for their lives and for the future generation, and they must be committed and responsible to an agenda for themselves and their people, because their ancestors made a great number of sacrifices for them, including Malcolm.
But on that agenda, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hate shouldn't be part of that agenda, should it?
Excuse me, hate is an emotion. I think it's an excellent emotion. Sure, hate can be part of that emotion. Love can be part of that emotion, because we are a redemptive people, and we're going to get stronger, so that reciprocity must be a focal point. There's nothing wrong with hate. You know, there is a season for everything under the sun. You know, you have to understand love and hate, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think what has happened is that bigots have added a meaning to it that should not have been there. So there's nothing wrong with hate. And they've got to dislike some things, and you've got to hate some things with a passion. And destruction, they must dislike and hate with a passion. So that the old racist definition of hate, perhaps not, because they've added some things to it that they should not. But love and hate go together.
That's true. Thank you.
Okay.
I've lived that.
Okay.
If you've been in love, you can also understand a little bit about hate.